Thank you very much. Good morning or good afternoon? Good afternoon, yes, good afternoon. I'm here today with Peter Garrett, our Minister for School Education, and with Barry McGaw, who leads our Australian Curriculum Assessment and Reporting Authority. Earlier this year, we launched My School, a website that gave parents more information than they had ever had before about their child's school. More information about the school and its performance in national testing, more information about the school in terms of the student population, more information about the school in terms of the numbers of teaching and non-teaching staff within the school. My School has been a hugely popular site. 2.5 million Australians have visited it. It has had more than 4 million hits. And I think we all remember that on the day that My School was launched, it was the subject of overwhelming demand. And after the launch of My School, we had an intense national conversation about what was happening in Australia's schools and how we could best improve school education for every child in every school. We're here today to give you a preview of the next version of My School. My School 2.0 will give parents even more information about their child's school and the performance in that school. Because we are now at the stage that we've had 3 rounds of national testing, for the first time, My School is able to include data about the growth in student achievement, because kids that have sat an earlier test have now sat another national test. My School 2.0 includes new information about school finances. It includes a more accurate method of calculating the Community Socio-Educational Advantage Index, the ICSEA index, which ensures that you can compare schools that serve similar student populations. It's got new graphical means of displaying the national testing data, and it's got new security features to ensure that the website is used appropriately. This preview of how My School will now look will of course be followed by the new My School information in December. This is an important set of new data for Australian parents, for teachers and for the Australian community. I've always believed that if we are to achieve our vision of a great quality education for every child, then we needed the whole nation to have accurate information, school by school, about the quality of education, and My School is giving that information to parents and Australians. I'll turn now to Peter Garrett for some comments, and then we'll take people through the site.
Thanks very much, Prime Minister, and thank you to ACARA for the work they've done in bringing this previewed site to us for our attention. It's worth reflecting that education ministers at the state and federal level, previous to the My School website, didn't have easy access to national data on education and school performance. And that's why My School is so important. And that's why continuing to improve My School is important as well. As the Prime Minister said, the updated My School 2.0 site, when it goes live in December, will have a number of important and new features. But one I want to mention to begin with is that there will be additional information supplied by schools to contextualise the school, to provide school characteristics on display for parents and those who come in and want to understand more about a school. And I know this is something that principals in particular wanted to see reflected on the updated My School website, and it is reflected here. Growth data. For the first time nationally, we will have growth data which shows us how well students are progressing when they undertake their NAPLAN tests. So that's growth data for students in literacy and numeracy, the same group of students who sat the test, say, in 2008 and then set it again in 2010. We now have the capacity under this site to see what progress of improvement has been made by those students. So measuring growth of progress, a very, very important feature in this My School 2.0 site. School finance data, as the Prime Minister said, for the first time, the provision of information across government and non-government schools, which determines both recurrent income that the schools have received and also their capital expenditure. That's an extremely important piece of work that's been undertaken by ACARA in cooperation with the relevant authorities, and I'm really pleased to see this information coming up on this site. The first time we'll see the distribution of resources at school level, and we'll also see it across the nation. Finally, as the Prime Minister said, the ICSIA index, new and improved, better data coming into that index, that provides a richer information base in terms of looking at where schools sit on the site, and that will be of great interest not only to the parents and the student communities, but more generally to the community at large. I want to specifically say that this has been a huge piece of work, and you'll notice that there are graphical improvements on the site. It's a site where, when it's been tested, parents and principals have thought that the new graphics are working well. I'm pleased to hear that. It'll be very exciting when it goes live in December. But for the moment, I'd like to hand over to ACARA Chair Barry McGaw to take us through the site in some more detail.
Thanks, Barry. Thank you. You can come and hang out with you.
Now the site has the same front page as before. You can search for an individual school by name, or you can search by suburb. I'll take you straight into the site. The next page is new. This is a page that sets out terms and conditions of use, and also obliges, as many websites do, a user to type some somewhat obscure letters, the purpose being to make sure that the user is a human and not a machine that's data scraping. And then you accept the conditions, and you go into the first site, the first page of data on the school. We've provided more space for the school to describe itself this year. Much of the other information is similar. There's the index of socio-educational advantage here. This is a school just below the mean of 1,000. This is a real school, and it's a real set of school comparisons that we're offering. I'll just highlight the things that are new. Down here, there's an overall summary of school finance, that this is a school with total finance around 12.7 million and expenditure per student of around $10,000 per student. If you want more detail, you can click there, but I'll show you the detail in a moment. Now, to get to the rest of the website, you can go via a set of icons at the bottom that indicate what you'd be going to see, or you can use, as before, the detail at the top. So we go to the school finance information. And what it shows is the recurrent income that the school had, how much it got from the Commonwealth government. This is a government school. It got about $2 million from the Commonwealth government, how much it got from the state government, how much it raised from parent contributions or parent activities in the school, and how much it raised from other sources. Now, in some schools that'll be interest earnings from investments or from capital reserves. And then that is expressed per student. And that was the summary figure you saw on the first page. Now, we'll have that information for the 10,000 schools in Australia, one by one. You can look it up and see how much is spent per student in each school in the country. That's information no one's had before. Now, we've also captured capital expenditure. The capital expenditure is going to be lumpy, of course. In some years when buildings are undertaken, there'll be more expenditure than in others, but over a period, a picture of capital expenditure in a school will emerge, so that'll be provided. If any of the actual recurrent income is committed to capital expenditure, that is put into capital works and not available for expenditure on the students, we treat that as a deduction and produce a net figure. That's the net figure that you saw before. But we've made that able to be seen but not dominant, because we think that the summary will be clearer for people, and we've got a graphical display of it. Then you can go to the NAPLAN results themselves, and you can do that in a number of ways. New is a graphical presentation rather than just a tabular one. And notice at the top, this is information that was on the site last year, but we put it together with the results. What percent of the students in the school fronted on the day of the test? And if there's any manipulation over time of this declining proportion of students being present, that will show. So here's the percent that were present on the day of the test. And of course, some of them are absent because they've got specific learning needs and they're excluded from testing. But we also have the numbers that are absent and the numbers that are withdrawn by parental request in advance. So all of those are conditions that existed for all of the years of the NAPLAN assessment, but we've brought them together here and put them immediately above the results. Now here's the school's result. 2008, 2009, 2010 in Year 7 reading. Now you can change from Year 7 to another year if you want, or you can change from reading to another test when you want to look at the other dimensions. But you can, this year, instead of putting all the results for 1 year together, we're putting all the results for one test together because it's the trends that people will now start to become interested in. And when there are 3, 4, 5, 6 years of assessment, trends will be more evident. And we've added as well an average result over the 3 years. We've done that particularly because of small schools for which there are too few students to have a result show in any 1 year. So schools, there were quite a few schools last year with too few students in a particular year level to have a result. They'll be now likely to have a 3-year average result. So there'll be fewer schools with no information. And then we'll be able next year to give 2 3-year rolling averages. And 3-year rolling averages give you more stable estimates of trends. So that's the nature of the results for the school. But then it will be possible to say, well, how are schools with similar students doing in comparison with this school? And just click here. And you can now see, well, there's the school's mean, and the schools with similar students in 2008 had a better mean, and in fact, the pale pink here indicates that this was a substantial difference, actually. It was between 0.2 and a half of the standard deviation ahead. We showed that last year with the colours. What we didn't show at the same place last year, though we did show it elsewhere, was something about margins of error. And we think we really should have those 2 bits of information in the one place. Now, here's the way to read this. This school is between 0.2 and 0.5 of the standard deviation behind schools with similar students. That's not trivial, but it's nevertheless within the margins of error. The lines going out indicate the margin of error for the school, and this is the margin of error for the average, the schools with which it's the 60 schools with which the comparisons were made. But look what's happened over time. The school hasn't changed, but the schools with similar students have been getting better. And better to the point where their average is beyond the margin of error of the school. So this is a school holding constant, but declining in comparison with schools with similar students. Now let me show you where that school stands in relation to all schools in the country. All schools in the country haven't shifted, and this school is sitting constant with all schools in the country. Now, without the My School site, as a parent, you would have known, you could have found out the national average for NAPLAN, and you could have got your school's result, and you would have said, well, my school's at the national average, and it's still there. But with the My School site, you could say, it's actually not doing as well as schools that have got students like this school has. Then you can go to the table, which is exactly the way we showed the information last year. That's still there. But we think it's better to take people to the graphical presentation first. It's easier to interpret. And this is even a bit more complicated than last year because we put the margins of error on. But the table's there for people who prefer to look at tables than to look at graphs. You can then look at the results in bands, which is the same display as we had last year. We think this is very important actually because what's happened in some other countries, when they present results that compare schools, they focus too exclusively on what percent of students are above some minimum level, not paying attention to what the really best students are doing. And you end up with a focus at that minimum level, and schools will concentrate, in many cases, too much effort at the students just above to preserve them there, just below in a hope to get them over, and ignore their high performers or their really low performers. There are stories of that from the US and the UK. We are presenting in every case, last year and now this year, information on, well, what proportion of your students are at the highest level in the band compared with similar schools and all schools. And then you can go now to the student progress measure. Now this is the same students in this school in 2008 when they were in year 7 and 2010 when they were in year 9. Now, we've excluded from the year 7 any students who were there then but not there now, and we've not included any students who are there now in year 9 but weren't in this school in 2007. So these are genuinely students for which the school had responsibility for those 2 years, and that's how they've changed. Now, what about schools with similar students? And again, for all of the schools with similar students, we've counted only students who were in each of those schools on the 2 occasions. So it's the first time we've started to get these trend measures. And we avoid the problem of people saying, well, you know, I only had these students for 6 months. It's the other schools should take responsibility for them. So we're focusing here on the ones in the same school on both occasions. And then, a display I really like, actually. I think it's so much better than last year's. It was very hard to read this display last year because we just had the schools listed alphabetically, and you pour up and down the list trying to see the differences. What we've done this year is, here's your school. You put your mouse over it, you get the name of the school, your mean and your margin of error. You put your mouse over another school. These are the 60 schools with which your school's being compared. You can see them name by name. Save you writing down the list of names, click up here, we'll give you the list of names. They're not there yet, but that will be there in December when the site goes live, which are the 60 schools. Go back to the display, and there it is. Now, this school's got a margin of error that runs out to around 555. Anyway, it's in around here. So these schools are well beyond the margin of error for that school. These are schools with similar students, and they're more than half a standard deviation ahead, which is a substantial difference. So these are schools doing much better with similar students than this school. And these are schools from which this school might learn about policies and practices, and they'll know them by name. They can go and look at their website, they can call the principal. And that's been going on this last year already. But this makes it much easier. Now, the school can gain some comfort from the fact that there's a couple of schools more than half a standard deviation behind. That's these ones in this darker colour down here, and these are between 0.2 and 0.5. Now, suppose you're a parent and you say, well, I know we're at the national average. I know our index of community social advantage was close to the national average, so we're a sort of average school performing at an average level. In our little group of like schools, we don't actually look so good, but where does that group of schools sit in the overall scheme of things? Well, zoom out. That's the distribution of all schools in the country, and that little distribution of schools, of which yours is one, is in that range there. Your school's at the national average, but of course that group of comparison schools is more above the national average than below. Now, some other parents will look up their school and find, well, we're at the bottom end of our comparison group, but our whole comparison group's at the top end of the distribution. Or maybe some would be taking comfort from the fact that they're at the top end of their comparison group, but they need to know that the comparison group itself is towards the bottom end of the national performance. So all of this information is readily available from this site. And then we provide, as we did last year, the list of neighbouring schools. We offer no direct comparisons with neighbouring schools because the only thing they share is geography. They might have very different students. You can click on the site and go and look up the school and get all of its information. But we don't give the systematic comparisons with geographic neighbours. We give systematic comparisons for schools with similar students. So that's the site, folks.
Thank you very much to Barry, and we're obviously happy to take questions, and Barry will be happy to take questions too. Can I just remind people that when we set out on this journey as a government following the election in 2007, we wanted to transform the way that Australians thought about and talked about school education. We wanted the focus to be on every school. Our politics, our discussion about school education to that point had tended to be about school systems, public, Catholic, independent. We wanted the focus to be on every school, because if you look at every school, then you can make a difference for every child in every school. And the existence of the My School website has transformed that national conversation since it was launched at the start of this year. It's also worked with government to help us better target resources. I think with this version of the site, we are going to transform the conversation again. We'll be now able to talk about what is achieved over time because of having the results for kids across years. And we're going to have a national conversation that is about governments and what governments do and how they fund schools. And we'll have that national conversation with more information than we've ever had before. And it's not only in the hands of people in government, it'll be in the hands of parents and the Australian community. But I would stress it's more information than government has ever had before either. These school by school financial comparisons across sectors, across states, every school. So this is a very exciting development. Happy to take questions. Go to the back.
There's been some allegations of cheating substantiated against some schools in the NAPLAN test. Are those allegations, the ones that are substantiated, going to be reflected on the My School website?
I'll get to Barry to talk about that.
The allegations are investigated by the State Testing Authority and then reported to us, and we are going to report them publicly. You will receive via our website a list of the nature of any misdemeanours and the actions that have been taken.
But in terms of the My School website, will there be a little asterisk somewhere next to the school for this year's testing saying that, you know, there were allegations proven against this school, and will those results be taken off, or will there be a note there?
If the results are unreliable, they won't be displayed.
Prime Minister.
Yes, Phil.
You've made a virtue of the funding being revealed for the first time. Will every dollar available to every school be revealed? Because there's been some speculation that, say, some of the wealthier schools that may get income from trusts and wealthy parents and other structures that they have won't be reflected in these figures. Will every dollar available to every school be revealed?
The financial information is the money available that the school manages. It goes through the school's books. If there are trusts that are not under the school's control, then the information isn't available.
Even if the money is available to the school to use to build
It depends
sports
how the
venues
trust is organised. If the trust is managed by the school, it's in the school's books and we have access to that information.
Prime Minister, when the site was first launched, its critics, including teaching unions, were saying that there was too little information that would lead to crude league tables. You at that time promised more information and context. Do you believe that the new site will satisfy those critics, and what is the potential for, down the track, further information to satisfy them even further?
I suspect there will always be some critics of transparency, so we will always have the debate. I've always said in relation to that I believe information is power, that parents should have this information and the nation should have this information. I've also consistently said there's nothing to be gained from having crude league tables that just list from top to bottom 10,000 Australian schools. What's powerful about My School, and it's been clear from Barry's explanation today, what's truly powerful about My School is the comparison with schools serving similar students. So we all know, sitting here, that a wealthy school on Sydney's North Shore will be getting different results than an Indigenous school in outback Australia. We all know that. We don't need a league table to tell us that. What is powerful is comparing that Indigenous school in outback Australia with schools that serve similar students and saying, are they at the bottom or are they at the top? And then not being satisfied with just that comparison, how are they going against the Australian average? So for that school, we want the journey to be getting better and better. They can learn the most from schools that serve similar students. They'll be able to go through this site and contact those schools. And obviously we want everybody to be progressing up and seeking to be the top of their list of schools, and we want them to be looking to improve every year.
Prime Minister, when
Prime
you first
Minister,
launched
the crude league tables you were talking about, this My School 2 is meant to help crack down on that, so to speak. Is cracking down on just that security page at the front to stop computers being able to hack into it, or is there other measures to stop say, newspapers or television stations from being able to create their own rules?
Well, certainly the dialogue box at the front is a security measure about people using the site as opposed to programs that are data mining off the site. We as a government have repudiated some of the calls that have been made about legislation and the like. I don't believe in that, and we won't be going down that path, but we have taken the security measures that you've seen on the site itself.
Yeah, and the terms and conditions that people accept are also part of it, drafted for us by the Commonwealth Solicitor, because in this last year, it wasn't so much people using the data in other ways. There was some misuse of the data. There was misleading use of the data, which we acted against, but we'll be in a stronger position to act against. I mean, some of it could be acted against under civil action, but some are actually under trade practices.
Prime Minister, I was going to ask a question about that because when the site was first launched, there was a brief controversy over companies using the information to collect their own league tables and sell the information to parents. Is there much you can do to stop that? Obviously, we talked about the new security measures in terms of the password on intellectual property grounds. And secondly, I understand that you say that you don't find the information terribly useful in terms of league tables, but why be squeamish about it? Why not let people see that information ranked if they wish to do so?
Because it's not powerful. It's just simply not powerful, not useful. For us to genuinely understand what is happening in schools, we need to understand what advantages and disadvantages kids are bringing to school. Now, we should not then fall for the assumption that demography is destiny. It most manifestly is not. But if we are going to analyse what is happening in a school, we've got to understand the advantages and disadvantages kids bring to school. We've got to be able to measure what the school is doing compared with schools that serve similar student populations. That's the truly transformative bit. And when you look at these school groups that are serving like students, they are forming already off my school, and it will be easier for them to do so. Connections which enable them to learn from the best of what is happening in schools that serve similar students. So the thing we're doing through my school is the most powerful thing, the most meaningful thing. And we want parents and the Australian community to have that access to the most powerful and meaningful information that we can give them.
Prime Minister, what do you want parents to do with that information if they see this site and they're worried about the performance of their school or the finances of their school? What do you want them to do? Who should they contact directly? And what can you tell them about what the government will do with this new information as well? Will you be reshaping funding?
Well, I'll turn to Peter for some comments, but what I would say is this. Parents are hungry for this information. Some of them will use it to inform school choice because people have got children, they've either moved suburb or they've got kids who are going into primary school for the first time or into high school for the first time. They'll use it to inform school choice, and that's one use of my school. The other use of my school, of course, is for your child enrolled in a school. You have a look, you form a view, and you should go down and talk to the principal, should go down and talk in the various consultative forums that schools have about what this means for your school and what's going to happen next. Obviously, they should be respectful conversations, but principals want parents engaged with education. I've met a lot of principals in my time in politics, and one thing that hallmarks a good school is that they welcome engagement by parents, they'll welcome those conversations. On the question of funding, which is revealed for the first time, I suspect people will have a lot of conversations with us, and they'll have a lot of conversations with state governments, and I think they'll be pretty good conversations. The nation deserves to have this information. I'll turn to Peter as well.
Yeah, thanks, Prime Minister. Look, just one thing to add. This is a richer, deeper set of information for the school community overall. And for people who are serious about the quality and the delivery of education, and that includes schools and principals, they will have a better informed dialogue, as the Prime Minister's just said. And one of the things that's very clear to me in the time that I've spent in the portfolio is that schools do desire to do the best they can for their students, just as parents want to get the best education possible as well. the interface between those two desires and wants comes about in a better way because of what we've got on My School 2.0. I'll just add one other comment. Remember that the Commonwealth is now making significant investments through the national partnerships, both in low socioeconomic schools and also in partnerships around teacher quality and literacy and numeracy. So we're already seeing that investment going into the school sector, and teachers and the school system are already giving us the feedback as to what kind of impact that's happening. We're also going to be able to effectively monitor the worth of that investment over time. That will be a very powerful tool for policymakers. Finally, we do have an independent schools funding underway, chaired by David Gonski. Again, a better context for Mr Gonski and his panel to continue their consultation process and ultimately to come down with recommendations for government to consider about overall funding in the future.
Minister, what was the cost of the update, and did the government consider at any stage putting advertising on it to fund it?
Well, look, I'll ask Barry McGraw to answer that question.
I don't have a figure, actually. I'm sure I could get you a figure, but we didn't consider advertising.
So this is obviously integrated into the work of ACARA, and ACARA's funding's
We're doing that
accounted
routine work.
for in the budget papers, and no, we didn't consider advertising.
Mr. Garrett, was there anything since you became minister that you were concerned about or wanted to have looked at on the original My School that's changed on My School too?
What I was interested in doing is seeing what decision ministers had previously made in relation to the ACARA delivery of the website and the information that ministers were seeking. And what we've had is ministers' request for this version of the website, which I think is the next logical step from the first My School website. I mean, it's a world first. There's no question about that. And what I saw was that an enormous amount of work had been done to get My School underway. And that first, remember, it's this year. It was in January of this year. So we're actually going to get to My School 2.0 within a 12-month period, which is a pretty phenomenal achievement on the part of all those who've done that work. And I was just very pleased to see how hard they were going at it.
Mr Garrett, you are working on, in line with the election promises, giving more power to principals. And I'm wondering whether you think that principals will be able to use this as something of a management tool to identify teachers, classes, areas that aren't working, and then with the greater power that you're going to give them, take action. Is this designed to be partly used as a management tool?
Well, it's designed to give everybody, including principals, who are obviously extremely important people in the schooling process, the additional level of information they need to properly understand the progress that their students are making and understand how their school is travelling as well. So I think it will be an important tool for principals, and I believe that principals will welcome this tool. They, on the other hand, have the discretion as to how they manage their schools, and it's different across the jurisdictions, as you probably know, but it will be a rich information source for them, and I think that they'll use it well.
Minister, there's been some criticism from non-government schools, some early criticism of the revised methodology for the ICSE index in this version of My School. And there's been some reporting suggesting that perhaps the launch of the site might be delayed because of challenges from schools to their ICSE score. What's your response to those criticisms, and when will the site fully be launched?
Well, three things to say quickly. The first is that any of those schools who have raised issues about their ICSE designation have been given ample opportunity to have that matter properly considered by ACARA, and I understand that the Chief Executive enabled extra time for that to happen. In terms of the detail, the data detail in terms of resolving those issues, that is something which is being undertaken as we speak. And in terms of timelines and delays, I have no advice in front of me that suggests that we won't launch in December.
Prime Minister, you were able as Minister at the time to stop the teachers' unions from going on strike over NAPLAN. Are you confident that these revisions will now stop them from going on strike in the future?
the government's determination to deliver My School, I think, has been there for all to see. Yes, we did have some conversations with a bit of heat in them with the Australian Education Union, and I think we will continue to have some different views about My School, but My School's here to stay, and we're here today to show you that it's getting better and better for parents. Now, I am concerned that sitting day, we have question time, but if I could...
On the royal wedding, would you like to go to the wedding?
Okay, I was, thank you David Spears, I was going to make a statement about the royal wedding. Obviously Australians today have woken to the news that Prince William and Kate Middleton have announced their engagement. On behalf of the Australian people and personally on my own behalf, I wish them very well for their life together ahead. I'm sure Australians are going to follow all details of this with great enthusiasm and delight. They're doing that today, and I'm sure they will do that as the wedding itself takes shape.
Prime Minister, on gay marriage, have you seen the reports today that Kevin Rudd, before he left that job, agreed with Penny Wong and Anthony Albanese to pursue the prosecution of civil unions? Do you have any response to that report?
Look, I've seen that report today, but my position is very, very clear, as is the Labor Party's position from our last national conference.
Ms. Gillard, if Labor's prepared to support the ban motion now, why are you not prepared to support a conscience vote on gay marriage?
Well, let's be very clear about what the motion moved by Adam Bant is. The motion is about people being in contact with their constituents. Of course, as members of Parliament, when issues are of community debate, members of Parliament should be in contact with their constituents, talking to them about their views. That's what members of Parliament do. For example, I think people will be having a lot of constituent conversations about My School.
And Prime Minister, on that, if the results come back and there is an overwhelming desire, as polls will suggest that people are okay with gay marriage, will you then reconsider a conscience vote on this issue or even changing your party platform?
Labor Party will have its national conference, and I anticipate there will be a broad range of matters that are discussed there, including this one. We're a party of government, we're a party of ideas. We're a party of government that's getting on with delivering our vision for a strong economy, ready to meet the challenges of the future, opportunities for all Australians, and you couldn't get a more powerful example about what that means than the education transformation of My School. So we're a party of government, we're a party of ideas, and as a party of ideas, people at our national conference and in the lead up to it, within and beyond the forums of the ALP, will be debating ideas. I think that's a good thing. Phil?
Would you accept the recommendation of the conference?
National Conference sets the party's platform. I am in exactly the same position as every Labor leader since we had the Labor Party, which is a long, long time ago now, which is that the platform is decided at the conference. And, well, hang on, this platform is decided at the conference and the Federal Parliamentary Labor Party, led by me, makes decisions about how we will go about working on platform questions.
When are you planning on releasing the NBN business case, Prime Minister?
The Minister's been very clear that'll be in December, yes.
Would you be looking to lead that debate rather than just follow and take what conferences?
Well, I just think everybody's getting way, way, way ahead of themselves. So let's just steady a little bit. There will be a lot of issues discussed at National Conference. I will, of course, be playing the role of Leader of the Labor Party at that National Conference. But today, here we are in Parliament, governing the nation, transforming opportunities for Australian students, and when we're talking about the things that will determine prosperity, opportunity and equity in this country for the decades in front of us, there aren't too many more powerful things than what we're looking about today. Phil Curry.
Are you worried that this could sort of prove an unwanted distraction for the next 12 months going round?
We're a party of government, party of ideas. David?
Are you aware of any deal struck by Kevin Rudd on this issue?
No.
Prime Minister, the AFR salary survey released today shows that the average salary of the top 300 chief executives was $2.25 million last year. 6 executives received more than $10 million. 2 of those were the big 4 banks bosses. One of those, Ralph Norris, received $16 million, up 75% on last year. Are you comfortable with that?
we have acted on executive pay, and I think, I share the uncomfortable feeling many Australians have when they see these huge numbers. And the thing that used to drive people absolutely nuts was when they would see a CEO walk away with huge truckloads of money following them as their exit package. And as a government, we've acted on that because we understood Australians looked at it just amazed that people could be walking out the door with that much money in their hand. But we do have question time to go to. Thank you very much.